Thank you for joining me on the way forward. I'm Eddie Francis, and joining me is someone I am so pleased to have in this segment, Dr. Stanton McNeely. He is the president of the University of Holy Cross on the best bank.
Yes, indeed.
President McNeely, so when you and I met, I want to say that you were over development or advancement at Holy Cross, were you?
Yes, that's right. I was over advancement during the time of Katrina and the few years following.
Yeah, so I haven't gotten a chance to speak to you since you have been President McNeely. So it is such a pleasure to catch up with you. And so I mean, let us have it. First of all, I start these interviews by asking presidents about the impact of the institutions on Southeast Louisiana. So how would you describe University of Holy Cross's impact on Southeast Louisiana?
Well, and I'm going to answer that question in just a moment, Eddie, but I want to express my gratitude to you and to be okay for your reach to us, to all of us in higher education here in Greater New Orleans, and doing this series on our colleges and universities and how we make an impact in our local community. And so for the University of Holy Cross, one of the things we're committed to is from our founding in 1916. We're one of 8 Holy Cross colleges and universities in the United States, but specifically here in New Orleans, we've been serving Metro New Orleans since 1916. And like you said, we're on the best bank, Westbank, and in doing so, we're the only 4-year university located physically with a campus on the west bank of the Mississippi River and here in Greater New Orleans. But our students are from all over. And our students are mostly from Greater New Orleans. We were founded by the Marionite sisters to be true to their mission, to be a prophetic presence in our ever-changing world. And key to that is to meet the needs of our ever-changing world. And so it started with teachers, the need for teachers in our K-12 schools locally, and that has evolved. It's been true to really the caring professions, a lot of frontline people you see in the local community, teachers, nurses, mental health professionals, small business owners. That's Holy Cross's impact, and so it's in a variety of other ways as well. But the vast majority of our students are from Greater New Orleans, and they stay in Greater New Orleans.
So, that brings me to something. When I normally see anything happening with Holy Cross, it is normally nursing. But lately, I have been, running across so many folks in academia. Actually, a friend of mine a few weeks ago was able to get hooded with his doctorate in counseling at Holy Cross. And so, you just mentioned a couple of the academic programs or the other academic programs. And so, what do people need to know about these academic programs, and how would you describe the importance of these academic programs beyond what you just mentioned in your first answer?
Well, I definitely appreciate that question because it really highlights how we are innovative and are adapting to meet the needs for students and the local community. And so, for our academic programs, like you mentioned, the ones I just talked about, you find a common thread. Right,
Hmm.
is that students look to the University of Holy Cross for upward mobility through these professions, which match their interests and skills and desire for a better life, but also community impact and where there are needs and demands from the local community in particular here in New Orleans, so that we need teachers, we need nurses, we need other health workers and professionals in the physical space, but also in the mental health space. And one of the ways we've been innovative and adapting is we've been traditionally a commuter institution. And so much like our community colleges, some of our other universities in the area that have people drive to campus, we've done that through most of our existence, and we continue to do that. But to increase access, we've been offering programs, especially for working professionals, online. So you mentioned that friend of yours that just completed our doctoral program. When I became president in 2019, we had conversations with faculty about the needs of our working professionals, and most of those are in our graduate programs and also our undergrad program in business. And in counseling, they really led the way. They really said, look, we can work to provide access to Holy Cross's counseling program to more students who are balancing work and family and life and faith and all the other commitments they have. And so they don't necessarily have to drive to campus in Algiers. And so they could still get a Holy Cross education, get that degree, get an opportunity for a leg up. And so, and of course, in the process of being a professional, in this case with counseling, service others and help others in need. And so we had started providing the infrastructure before the pandemic, and the training for faculty, and then of course with the pandemic, like everyone, we went online, and now we've really expanded our reach. And so Holy Cross, yes, here on the Best Bank, but also now we have students from 34 states and 5 countries because there are no barriers. We've removed that barrier for a person balancing a lot of different commitments in their busy lives. And so, yes, the vast majority of our students are for Greater New Orleans, but we also have increased the geographic diversity of our students.
I think that's one thing that a lot of folks locally may not really realize is the diversity as far as the geography of the students who are at Holy Cross. So just as an FYI for folks, how many total students do you have, undergrad and graduate programs?
Sure. Yeah, we have about 1,150 students, and that is a wide diversity. It includes things like dual enrollment, where we're working with local high schools, public high schools, private high schools, including Catholic, but full range of schools. Other private schools like Muslim Academy and Gretna and so forth, and schools on the East Bank, West Bank, North Shore, and so we see it throughout the metro region. And that includes also, you mentioned undergrad programs. So the campus sees a lot of students interested in the medical professions. We
Hmm.
mentioned nursing. We see pre-med growing exponentially. And we're in dialogue with Xavier University as they're starting the College of Medicine with Ochsner Health. We have many students go to LSU and Tulane Med, but we also want to provide that avenue of opportunity in cooperation with Xavier University through our pre-med program in cooperation with their med school they're forming. And so students have choices for the best fit for them. And then we also see growth in health sciences programs on campus, like radiologic technology and neurodiagnostic technology. And most of the students who do that and come to campus are in that geographic region of Southeast Louisiana. But one of the things most folks don't know is that most of our students are from the East Bank.
Ah, okay,
and
okay.
and so just to provide access that way,
Hmm.
we have students from St. Bernard taking that ferry, and Plaquemines Parish too. And then of course people from East Bank. We see a lot of students from New Orleans East, Gentilly, Mid City coming in. Of course, the East Bank of Jefferson as well, and even students coming from the North Shore taking that trip across the I-10 and Causeway. And so even the Bayou region, we still view that as the extended West Bank, but we see them coming from Home and Thibodeau as well. So it's to reset that perspective. And then with you mentioned the online and graduate side of things, and I would add teacher certification too. Online has really blossomed with the access for working adults and working professionals. And so, one of the things that we've done is partner with various entities. In business, for example, we have partnered with Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, and we want to partner with more banks. I want to reach out to Liberty Bank, for example, and Investar and for Fifth District and others, especially the small banks, community oriented businesses, to have their employees go through our banking program here. We customize, and that gives them a leg up, but they don't have to drive to campus. While they're at work, while they're there, they can take classes with our faculty and then get a leg up to our undergrad program in organizational leadership and then continue on for a master's degree in management too. That's something the banking industry has approached the University of Holy Cross about, especially the small community banks. And we want to be able to provide that opportunity for their employees. And you mentioned counseling, and that has been the shining example of where online has really provided the opportunity for students from Louisiana, master's prepared students going through the PhD program with us, or those who have a bachelor's or master's looking to go to the next level. And then I mentioned teacher certification. Traditionally, of course, driving to campus, we would have students from local area, and we continue to see the vast majority of our teacher certification students online. But we just partner with a charter school system, Linwood Charter School System in Shreveport, that went through teacher certification and master's degree programs in education with us. And that's one thing we want to get the word out about too, is that our education programs, where you've got busy teachers focusing on their students in K-12, as well as school counselors, they don't have to drive anymore. They can definitely go to our online programs and get the education through Holy Cross.
There are a couple of things that you mentioned that I really want to highlight. Number one is the simplicity of the approach of making sure that the local community in the greater New Orleans area is served in some critical areas, and business is certainly one of them. Definitely nursing. I know there are people who probably listen to some of these interviews and they probably say, well, how many of these schools have nursing programs? But it
Yeah.
it it speaks to the need, the shortage of nursing, and that's why we have so much of it. And then mental health counseling with that very practical approach. But the other thing that I really love is I did get the opportunity to also do an interview with President Verrett over at Xavier, and I think that cooperation in
Yes.
pipelining students into the College of Medicine with them, I love that cooperation between institutions. I would really love to see more cooperation among all of the institutions throughout the greater New Orleans area, but that's an Eddie thing. But I definitely would like to see it. I love it when I hear it, though. Most definitely.
Well, and to your exact point, the nature of people's needs are changing. As students through the university setting, college university setting, as well as the job opportunities and the career paths and the opportunities for upward mobility for people. And so, true to our mission, as we work to meet the needs, particularly in the caring professions we've talked about, we want to make sure that we're innovative. We're continuing to really meet the needs in mid 21st century ways. And it's a dynamic time for American higher education, more dynamic than we've seen probably since World War II. And so we have to make sure that we're focused on the community much more than we're focused on ourselves. And cooperation is key for that. And it's not just for institutional survival; it's for institutional relevance to the needs of people. And so for relevance to students, relevance to the employers, relevance to the broader needs of the community sociologically. Yes, absolutely agree. And I have to share that our community college friends, Delgado Community College, Dr. Stibe, Dr. Tinney at Nunez Community College in the Bayou, Dr. Christine Strickland, they have been really good partners as well to see that progression of stackable credentials and upward mobility and access for students. So it's not just universities or community colleges, really a both and relationship, looking at the student first and their pathway.
Yeah, yeah. And everything that you're saying is highlighting one of the reasons I do this series, and that is so people can be aware of how our colleges and universities are anchors for the communities and how they help our communities thrive all the time. You're listening to The Way Forward. I'm Eddie Francis, and I'm speaking to Dr. Stanton McNeely. He is the president of the University of Holy Cross. And I also love the approach of, and I don't think people realize this, but there can be so much simplicity in innovation. Innovation doesn't
Yes.
always have to be something that we just never ever thought of before. Sometimes going back to the thing that actually is needed is just as innovative as trying to think of that thing that we don't have yet. And so I definitely appreciate how you really frame innovation in the way Holy Cross is approaching it. Now, speaking of approaches, one of the things that I noticed, especially going through Holy Cross's website and then looking at Holy Cross's social media imprint, is that there is so much leaning into his faith based identity. And so
Yes.
a big part of that is your identity as a Catholic institution, as a Marianite institution. So, what makes that what makes that distinction as far
Mhm.
as an institution of higher learning? How does that separate Holy Cross from other colleges and universities?
Well, thank you so much for that question, Eddie. I think it really goes to the core of who we are and how we may be a potential fit for students, but also our relevance in meeting the needs of the community. So, for example, you mentioned, and I'll give you a practical example of the Marionite and Catholic components where we reach out to people of all backgrounds. And if we're a good fit for their interests for education and opportunity to impact the lives of others. So, you mentioned nursing. There are plenty of nursing programs, and that is because, like you said, of the shortage. The same thing for teachers, the same thing for mental health counselors. We've got a mental health crisis in our world. And so, one of the things being true to our Marionite charism is that and Holy Cross, we say we educate the mind not at the expense of the heart. And one of the pieces of key feedback we receive from the community is that in the way that our nurses and other medical professionals are formed at Holy Cross, and also in the teaching and other professions like counseling, is that they provide very compassionate care and service. And so I'll give you an example. Um, I interact with the business leaders of the healthcare organizations, and they were talking about a particular nursing graduate of ours, and how that graduate was someone who recognized that a patient had passed away in a hospital room, and the patient had been passed away for about a day, but the technology failed. The technology was not properly recognizing that situation. But because our Holy Cross graduate was focused on the person, she recognized that unfortunately that person had passed away. And his point to me wasn't anything about any other nursing program. It wasn't anything about that. But it was the reminder that the Holy Cross education in any program, you mentioned mental health and counseling, is that the person is the focus. In this age when we have so much technology, so many tools at our disposal, that we've got phones in front of our faces more hours than we necessarily do people. That the education of the heart for us at Holy Cross means that we focus on the person and their soul above all else.
Mhm. But this is one of my big arguments about higher education, and I say this as someone who is in marketing communications, and I know my audience just knows I'm a broken record on this this type of thing. But as someone who's been in marketing communications and who has constantly been asked, okay, help us stand out, make us stand out. And one of the things that I always return to is in higher education, we are in the people business.
Yes.
We are here because not only are we creating these great leaders, not only do we have people who are going out and creating knowledge and setting the pace for the way society is supposed to move forward, but at the same time, to me, what part of our job is in higher education is to help people in the community feel as if they matter. And I
Yes.
think that example that you just gave is such a great example of what someone who has a particular type of education, who has really bought into what Holy Cross is trying to do, and that translated to the work, that translated to the job. It wasn't just this person saying, "Yeah, I need to go make some money, so I'm going to be a nurse," because there aren't enough nurses out
Right.
there. But they said, this is a mission for me, and I think that translates in being able to recognize the humanity of that patient who unfortunately passed away. And so I really salute you on that. And I want to return to something about mental health too, because as someone who has actively sought out mental health, who's going through a treatment plan himself, I don't know if people realize this, but it is tough to find a mental health counselor. And I've had so many people reach out to me and say, "Hey, Eddie, you talk about mental health. Can you suggest someone to me?" And they'll call back and they'll reach back out, and they'll say, "It's really hard to find someone. It's hard to get an appointment. Everybody is filled right now." So I, I think for I think for Holy Cross to keep his foot on the gas
Yeah.
as far as really looking at these practical and relevant programs is something that you have to be saluted for,
Thank you.
especially recognizing that there is an actual need in the community. I want to hear more about the alumni, though, and especially from you as a president. When you take a look at your alumni, um, what is something that makes you proud about your alumni? How would you describe the contributions?
Well, I'm going to link it to what you just mentioned about the need in mental health counseling. So, we have had a counseling center on campus. We opened in the 90s that served the local community, public facing, of course, open to the community, where our master's students under faculty supervision provide counseling services. And that has been doing so for 30 years. And this is a real testament to our alumni, our faculty, our students, is when COVID happened. Um, they said, "Look, we can't stop this." So we got approval from the Louisiana Counseling Association to reach out and do this through telemental health. What that meant is, and to your exact point, Eddie, is that not just meeting the needs in Algiers or the West Bank or Greater New Orleans, but now we were able to provide the opportunity to provide counseling services statewide through telemental health. And we did not stop, and we really focused on it. And thank God we were able to continue to do that through the pandemic, but now also we do that continuously. So we keep providing that service in addition to graduating alumni in the counseling profession. But you mentioned alums, and I at the top of this conversation, I talked about just very briefly about getting to know you during the time of Katrina, and also the few years following my first life here at Holy Cross, and really coming up on the 20th anniversary of Katrina, it reminds me of our alumni. And it's not true only of Holy Cross alumni, what I'm about to say, but it was highlighted in so many stories that come back in this moment of remembrance of our anniversary of what happened 20 years ago. And so many alumni of Holy Cross, not just in nursing, but in small businesses, for example, um, stayed in the community and impacted the community and gave of themselves throughout that crisis, not just in August 2005, but through 2006 and 2007 and the recovery in the years following, giving out from their businesses or staying at the hospital with patients with no AC, no electricity, and flooded first floors, right? That's the alumni story of Holy Cross, is that they're the ones, and the teachers who reopened schools, right? And so we may not have the superstar alums who, are recognized as billionaires. I wish I did to get some philanthropy, you know, but we have the alums who had touched the lives of New
Yeah.
Orleanians in their time of most desperate need, and even
Mhm.
in everyday need. And so I think that's the impact of the University of Holy Cross, then highlighted in that moment during Katrina. But I'd say that's the impact every day. People may not see that from our alumni or know that they're a Holy Cross alum. Maybe we should continue to really get that out there, to your point earlier. But that's the big impact, is that these alums are right in front of you in most cases, right in front of your children or your loved ones, providing counseling services, healthcare, and education and business support. Um, it's just that's their impact in throughout our community.
So I always like to end interviews by asking presidents about the way forward for their institutions as far as community engagement. So one of the things that I do remember about Holy Cross is that every year the university provides free tax help, if I'm not mistaken. So
That's right.
you have those types of things. The big crawfish boil, which one of these I have got to make the crawfish boil one of these years. But how else can people in the community engage with Holy Cross?
I love that question because, in addition to everything we're saying or have said already about academic programs and the impact of our students and alums, this is what we're doing now. And it's, yes, through education, that's our core mission, but it's through community engagement too, right? To your exact question, Eddie. And so, yes, tax tax services, we do this every spring. Our business department does it with our accounting program, and we also cooperate with Entergy for a super tax day, all free, all open to any member of the community that wants to come to campus and get those services. We do that Saturdays, January to April, with, of course, the exception of Mardi Gras. But we work through that, and we help everybody in need, and we don't stop. And our students get great learning experiences and serving the community, and also with that provision. And it's been a very successful service. The other thing is we have a West Bank Hispanic Heritage Festival we've done in cooperation with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Louisiana, and multiple partners, small businesses in particular in the community. And we open that up to the community. And the next one is October 18th. So please mark your calendar. And yeah, the crawfish boil we have in the springtime is a community oriented event as well. One of the things I really want, being the only 4-year university, not just in Algiers, but on the West Bank, is to really, for the community to see us as a community hub, a community center. And so we have a new partnership with the Beignet Fest Foundation going on right now. We have Children on Campus for Camp Benny, which is the first and only one in the South Shore camp that is specifically for neurodivergent children and children with autism. And it's just that spectrum of activity. And so I really want to make sure the knowledge is out there that we want community partnerships, whether it's with large systems like the hospital systems or small community actors. You could be a mom and pop, and we want to be with you.
Absolutely. Dr. Stanton McNeely, he is the president of the University of Holy Cross. Thank you so much for joining me on the way forward.
Thank you so much, Eddie. A pleasure to be with you today.